everybody, I'm so excited to be here. This is awesome. There's some familiar faces in the room today, which makes it even more fun. But I love Plywood. I love Plywood people. I love Plywood Presents. I love everything that this organization is doing in Atlanta, empowering people working on big dreams and big projects to make a difference. So this is quite an honor to be with you today. And I'm excited to share with you about a topic I care deeply about, and it's all about people. So in order to tell my story real quick, I want to rewind back to 2014 at Plywood Presents at the fabulous Fox Theater 7 years ago. Anybody in this room at that event? Yes, awesome. Fantastic event. At this point, I was about 9 months into my entrepreneurial journey. You see, I had just quit my very comfortable marketing job and was trying my hand at being an entrepreneur. I had this business idea. I had this business model. Basically, we were going to go to conferences and events. We were going to set up big canvases, and we were going to draw what people said while they say it. We were also going to do animation and design, and we were going to scale up, and we were going to scale really big. Now, at this point, I had no idea what the heck I was doing. No idea. You see, I'd never been to business school. I'd never even really taken a business class. I wasn't one of these people that read business books or even listened to business podcasts. I was a total business noob trying to validate my business model in front of hundreds of people in a very public setting. So you can imagine I was quite nervous. In fact, I was especially nervous at this event because everyone around me was better looking than me, was cooler than me, working on projects that were way more interesting and inspiring than mine. I remember sweating, loading my supplies into the loading dock behind the Fox Theater. I remember trying to navigate the venue, trying to get set up. I was using markers that were way too fumey, getting me a little bit lightheaded. Maybe the people around me lightheaded. But anyways, I was super nervous. And looking back at this photo, my mindset at the time was that I felt like I was trying to achieve the impossible. I felt like what I was doing was impossible, but I was giving it a shot. Now, fast forward to today. Here is our awesome team. A few people not pictured. This was taken just a few weeks ago at our own Sketch Summit event. And as you look at this picture, it seems in many ways as if we have achieved what once seemed impossible. We've scaled up. We've hired people. We've gotten to work with awesome brands, awesome companies. We've gotten to travel the world. And we even have a cool office in Midtown with bikes on the wall that we take out on the Beltline for lunch. So it's pretty cool. It's not as cool as this space. I mean, this is awesome, but it's pretty cool. So in many ways, it feels like we have achieved the impossible. Now, I know that maybe many of you today feel how I felt back in 2014. Maybe you feel like you're in this gap between the impossible and the possible. Maybe you're starting your own small business and you feel like, how am I ever going to get this off the ground? Maybe you're starting a nonprofit that you care deeply about, but it's just taking a little bit longer than you thought. Or maybe you're a freelancer or a solopreneur, or maybe you're working at a big company, you're part of a team, and you're trying to make a difference where you are, and it's just really, really difficult. So I know what it feels like to be in the gap between the impossible and the possible. And now 8 years in, not that I've figured it all out, but I've realized that for me, it all comes down to people. It all comes down to people. And here's the thing. Working for yourself does not mean working by yourself. Working for yourself does not mean working by yourself. In fact, I believe that the gap between what's impossible and what's possible is bridged with people. It's not bridged with strategy. It's not bridged with marketing. It's not bridged with SEO or fancy promotional stuff. It's not bridged with fancy marketing tricks. It's bridged with people. That's all important, but it's all about the people. And so if you only remember one thing from this talk, it's this. Who you put around your business will have the greatest impact on your business. Or let me state it differently. Who you put around your nonprofit will have the greatest impact on your nonprofit. Who you put around your project will have the greatest impact on your project. So people matter. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. So I love to talk to creatives. I get to talk to schools and universities and small businesses and entrepreneurs. And one thing I love talking about is the people side of business. So if you allow me the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to talk to you about 5 people to say yes to, and then we're going to talk about 5 people to say no to. And this is going to be pretty practical. I know there's some speakers here at Plywood Presents that are really inspiring and life-changing. This is going to be a little bit more nuts and bolts, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. So let's jump into 5 people to say yes to. And yes, these are all my own drawings, so hopefully you like them. The first one is the peer. Everybody needs a peer. you need a peer. And I'm going to take it one step farther and say you need a peer group. So the peer's primary role in your life is to provide accountability. The peer understands your business. They know what you've been through. They know where you're going. They know what you're trying to achieve. They're there to hold you accountable. They're there to challenge you, to push you. But it's bigger than that. The peer is also there to celebrate with you when you have wins. The peer is there to lament with you when you have losses. They're there to commiserate with you when times are hard, and they're there to complain with when you're dealing with a terrible client or have a problem person on your team or whatever. So the peer, like I said, I love Plywood, and one of the reasons is I'm a beneficiary of Plywood. For many years, I was in a Plywood Layers peer group. And I can honestly say that the early years of my business would not have been successful without this group. So we would meet we'd meet one Friday a month at the old Plywood place over on Carroll Street, which was really cool. Not as cool as this, but it was cool. We'd eat chicken biscuits, we'd have coffee, we'd talk about our work, we would get into each other's lives, and it was such meaningful, important time, not only relationally, but also as I built the business. This group meant so much to me that this is a true story. This is a true story. The morning my wife was going into labor with our first son, I asked her, hey, I'm just gonna go to Layers. You text me if this thing gets serious, and I'll come running. Did not go over well. So if you take away two things from this, number one, join a peer group. It's worth it. It's worth the investment. It's worth the cost. And number two, if your wife is going to labor, don't ask her if you can go do something else. Not a good idea. So the peer group, the next person you need to say yes to in your life is a mentor. You know, my wife and I just finished watching the Olympics last couple weeks, and I love watching the coach-player relationship, the coach-athlete relationship. So one of the coolest things actually from the Olympics was watching these athletes come off the track or come out of the pool and then go run to their coach and celebrate and talk and strategize. We all need coaches. We all need mentors. So the mentor's role in your life, in your business, in your nonprofit is to provide advice. You need to find someone who's one, two, three, or many steps ahead of you. You need to work with them. You need to invite them into your life. Have the humility to know that you don't have all the answers. Speaking of Plywood Layers, so the leader of our group was none other than Jeff Schinnebarger. And I've had many coaches and mentors throughout my life, one of which has been Jeff. And I'm going to tell a quick story, which is that many years ago, in one of our Layers groups, Jeff was probing us and asking questions about our business, questioning our business models, getting us to think a little bit differently about our work. And I remember him saying to me, he said, William, you know, Sketch Effect, you've been doing this sketching thing mostly the same way for a couple years. You go to events, you bring your markers, you sketch on big boards, you know. Have you ever thought about sketching digitally? Have you ever thought about sketching maybe through a digital, like a tablet, and maybe streaming it to like from a remote location to another location? Have you ever thought about maybe streaming it to something like a Zoom room or a virtual event? And I thought, well, there's a novel idea. It sounds a little bit like a novelty of an idea, but it's still an idea worth considering. So my team and I considered that idea. We shelved it, then we pondered it again, then we shelved it, then we thought about it again. And then finally, in the fall of 2019, we decided, hey, let's actually pursue this idea. This might be something cool. So we invested in the gear, we invested in the training, we built out processes, we trained our entire team of artists how to sketch digitally and how to do it for a virtual platform. Now, let me remind you of the timing of this, because 5 months later, our entire business model was basically rendered obsolete. And I'm emotional about it because it was crazy. Within a matter of days, every live event was canceled. So we were potentially going to go out of business. However, we didn't. We were able to pivot quickly and pivot with courage and confidence because we had already done the hard work of developing this virtual version of what we do. And honestly, I don't know if we would have survived that season had it not been for that seed of an idea that was planted by a mentor many, many years ago. Sorry. I'm emotional about it because it's real. So find a mentor. It's worth every bit of money that it costs, and good mentors are going to charge. It's worth it. So find a mentor and lean on them. All right, the next person to say yes to is the advocate. The advocate is someone who loves you. They love your work. They think that you are doing amazing stuff, and they're highly connected. So the advocate's role is to provide connections. Usually the advocate is someone who has a bigger network than you. They're more influential than you. They know people. Maybe they're more popular, more wealthy, but they're there to go to bat for you. They're there to call in favors. They're there to support you because they care about you. And you might be thinking, I don't have an advocate. I don't have an advocate. Well, I'm going to challenge that assumption, and I'm going to say you probably do. You just maybe have not tried to pay attention and find that advocate. So find your advocates, and once you realize you have an advocate, tell them how grateful you are for them. Tell them how grateful and appreciative you are for their connections, because it matters. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I have had lots of advocates who have gone to bat for me, and like I said, we could not have done what we've done the Sketch Effect without the people, and that includes the advocates. So next up is the teammate. We all need a teammate to provide assistance. I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking, William, that's cool, but I'm a solopreneur, I'm a freelancer, I'm a one-man show, I'm a one-woman show. I don't need a team. Well, frankly, that's nonsense. You need a team. We all need a team. And I want to challenge your notion of what a team even looks like. It doesn't have to be a full-time W-2 employee. It doesn't have to be a part-time employee. It can be a contractor. It can be a virtual assistant. It can be your mom. The reality is we just need help. We have too much on our plates to do it alone. So please, please find a teammate. So my challenge for you today is, one, find something to delegate. Find something to delegate. And then two, find someone to delegate it to. And if you need a little exercise on how to delegate, I love walking other creatives, especially creatives, through this. One, write down every single thing you do. Don't do it now because it'll take too long. Do it later. Write down every single thing you do, from depositing checks to sending invoices to emailing clients. For me, creatively, that would be drawing and designing and animating. Also write down doing client calls. Write down every single thing you do. Then take a pen or a marker and circle everything on that list that you do not enjoy. Circle everything on your list that drains your energy. Then, with another color, just to make it fun, because we love visuals at the Sketch Effect, circle everything on your list that you are not good at, that you're not naturally good at. And then finally, circle everything on the list that someone else can do at minimal cost with minimal training, okay? Anything that has 3 circles, you need to delegate that off your plate as soon as possible. You are wasting your time doing that thing. So find one thing to delegate, find one person to delegate it to, and guess what? Your time will be freed up to reallocate towards the things that will drive the most impact for your work. So find a teammate, get some assistance. Speaking of teammate, shout out to my man Jai. Like I said, back in 2014, I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew that I could not be in 2 places at once. So if I had a client who wanted me to sketch the main session in the ballroom and also sketch the breakout session over there, I could not be in 2 places at once. So I had to get a teammate. So I called up my friend Jai and I said, hey Jai, you're a creative dude, you're sharp, I'm doing this weird sketching thing, you want to try it out with me? He said, sure, let's do it. So let me just remind you, I never hired anyone, I never managed anyone, I never trained anyone. But the thing with delegation and with a teammate is you got to start somewhere. You got to start small. So find a teammate and get some assistance. And then lastly, before we shift gears, is the fan or friend. I'll be honest with you, this is really hard. Like being a small business owner, running a nonprofit, working on a project you care deeply about, it's really, really hard. And so we need friends and fans around us to provide encouragement. We really need this. So cultivate it. When you see it, recognize it for what it is. Appreciate it. Don't feel like you have to return the favor necessarily. Just enjoy having friends and fans around you who are cheering you on as you journey forward. So before we talk about the 5 people to say no to, and we're going to have some fun with these guys because this is where it gets a little wacky. 5 people to, before we talk about this one, just remember, like I said, who you put around your business will have the greatest impact on your business or your nonprofit or your project. And if you get the other 5 people around your business, you will experience growth. You will experience success. It might not be as fast or as big as you expect, but you will begin to grow. And with growth comes clients, with growth comes customers, with growth comes donors, with growth comes people that want to get involved in your business. So without further ado, let's talk about 5 people to say no to. Quick bit of context. I'm speaking out of my own experience as a creative business, so this is mostly related to my experience working with our clients. So I encourage you to apply this to whatever context you're in, whether it's nonprofit or whether you're on a team or whatever it is. Second bit of context is the reason why I know about these people is because I've worked with each of these people. Each one of these people I have worked with, sometimes more often than I'd care to admit, so learn from me. learn the lessons I've learned. And so without further ado, let's talk about the first one, the scope creep. Who knows what this means, the scope creep? Anyone ever worked with a scope creep? Anyone ever not worked with a scope creep? Probably. Okay. The scope creep is the type of client or vendor or partner or customer who hires you to do this thing right here, and then he is going to pay you to do this. And then sometime during the process, he asks you to do this, and then a little bit this, and then this, and this, and this, and this. And then before you know it, the scope of your work, the scope of your project has grown into some ugly monster that's bigger, more expensive, more costly, more time-consuming than it was ever meant to be. This is a scope creep, and the worst thing of all is he doesn't expect to pay you for any of that stuff. No thank you. So with the scope creep, you want to stand your ground. You want to defend yourself, politely and respectfully defend your ground, or stand your ground. And here's the thing, most of the time, these people don't know that they're creeping. They just need to be educated. The more they're educated, the less they'll creep. So please educate your scope creeps. Let's all teach them how to become good customers or clients. And most of the time, they will be redeemed into great clients. And if not, if they just keep on creeping, then just say no and walk away. All right, the next one is Mr. Exposure. I love this guy because I can spot him from miles away. I will hop on a call with somebody who really, really wants to hire us, and within about 10 seconds, I know I'm talking to Mr. Exposure. So Mr. Exposure sounds like this. He really loves your work. He's really excited to hire you or work with you or partner with you or collaborate with you. And in fact, he's so excited about it, he wants to work with you so bad that he's willing to make you an offer that you can't refuse. He's willing to make you a trade offer. You provide your great work, your great service, your great good or product, and he will trade you his massive exposure. He's going to give you so much exposure because you know what? His brand is huge. His platform is huge. He has tons of social media followers. His reach is massive. He's got popular friends. He has important friends. His network is so amazing. He knows powerful people, and he's going to give you the best exposure you've ever seen. However, he has no money to pay you, which is kind of weird considering how much he brags about himself. So if you run into Mr. Exposure, make him pay. Make him pay. It's as simple as that. Say, hey, this great, man, what a great offer you've made for me, but you know what? I get paid in money or I get paid in donations, not in exposure. And most of the time, 99% of the time, the exposure is not worth it. I've made this mistake. It's almost always not worth it. There's a smart way to go about getting exposure. There's a smart way to do it, a strategic way where you drive it, not them. We can talk about that later if you want to learn a little bit more about that. Most of the time, like I said, this guy is not worth working with. So please, if somebody comes making you an offer you can't refuse, offering you amazing exposure, don't say yes. Say no to this guy. All right, next up is the ghost. The ghost is tricky because we often don't recognize a ghost until they ghost. So the ghost will hire you or engage with you or partner with you, and then sometime throughout the process, they will up and vanish, usually without paying. And although it's hard to deal with that after it's happened, there's some ways to mitigate the ghostly effects on the front end. And this is pretty nuts and bolts business stuff here, but just collect as much payment up front as you can. This is such a simple lesson that took me way too long to learn. Way too long to learn this simple lesson. Collect as much up front as you can. Also, build your contracts, if you make contracts, which you all should, build your contracts in a way that make ghosting hard to do, where it's really difficult for someone just to up and leave. And then if the ghost comes back and wants to work with you and finally pays you, just think twice about working with them. And if they do want to work with you, make them pay in full up front, and then boom, you're off to the races. This is a true story. This is fresh off the press. We at the Sketch Effect have a client who's almost 300 days late with a 5-figure invoice. Really not cool. Really not cool. Now, they're not a total ghost. They are talking to us, but it's just taking way too long. And so I've told my team, I said, hey, if this client comes back, we're going to politely say no. Or if they insist on working with us, we're going to make them pay in full because nobody wants to work with a ghost. All right, second to last one is the devaluer. And this is just going to especially resonate with the creatives in the room because the devaluer means well. He really wants to work with you. He really thinks that what you do is cool, but he just doesn't see the value. He does not want to pay full price. And oftentimes people will think that just because you're doing work that you care about or you're doing work that is derived from your passion or your skill or your interest, that therefore you are willing to do it at a low cost. okay? Not cool. And oftentimes the devaluer is your family member or your friend or your cousin. So with these people, we just got to educate them. You got to shout your value. You got to advocate your value, defend your value. Most of the time they'll come around and they will learn and they'll pay full price. So that's the devaluer. And then lastly is the bully. We're not going to spend a lot of time with the bully because you shouldn't spend a lot of time with the bully. The bully are the types of people that want to work with you, but they're just going to be a total jerk to you the whole time. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. The bullies are not worth working with. They're going to harass you. They're going to manipulate you. They're not going to respect your time, your boundaries, your process. They're not going to respect you at all. So with the bullies, you're going to do two things. You're going to fight or you're going to flee. If the bully is actively exploiting you, if they're doing something that's borderline unethical or illegal or harassing you, then fight it. Fight it hard. I had a client who accused one of my most trusted team members of stealing. It was not cool. I had to fight. I had to defend my team. However, most of the time, the bully is just going to be a jerk. They're just going to be a pain to work with. In that case, just flee. Just walk away. We don't need to work with the bullies. And before I wrap up, I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking, William, this is all cool. I like the drawings, whatever, the exposure guide, it's all cool. However, my problem is I don't have any clients. I have nobody to say no to. I don't have any customers. I don't have any donors. And look, I get that. And take all this with a grain of salt. In the early days of launching something, getting revenue in the door, getting funds in the door is so critical. So there's exceptions to everything, but just be careful who you say yes to, especially when they come wanting to work with you. So just to wrap up here, the gap between the impossible and the possible is bridged with people. The right people will move you forward. The wrong people will hold you back. So please remember this. If there's one lesson I've learned from 8 years of running my own business, it's this. Working for yourself doesn't mean working by yourself. It doesn't. And speaking of lessons, I love getting to share back what I've learned, oftentimes the hard way. And in fact, I've created a new platform. It's called the Conquering Creative. It's really just a way for me to give back some kind of business advice to people like me that at one point had no idea about business, did not know what a P&L was, did not know what ROI meant, did not know what a strategic plan looked like, didn't know how to hire. So if this was helpful and you want to learn more, I would love to connect with you. We're on Instagram at The Conquering Creative and online at theconqueringcreative.com. So let's connect. Love to meet. And then lastly, I'm going to leave you with this point again, which is who you put around your business will have the greatest impact on your business. Who you put around your nonprofit will have the greatest impact on your nonprofit. Who you put around your work will have the greatest impact on your work. The stakes are super high, so please choose wisely. And that's all I got. Thank you very much. Hopefully this was helpful. And with that, I will hand it back over to our fabulous MC.